Domo! Domo! Domo Migato, Mr. Roboto! Just hit the music.
Oh, God. Show. I am Captain Fizz.
And greetings from the 7th Moon of Thunder. I am that mask guy.
And tonight...
Domo!
No.
Domo.
No.
Domo?
No.
Domo.
Screw it. Tonight we are going to talk about robots in movies. You know, it is a very huge part in the movie industry. Definitely, you know, not as big as Aliens, which we will touch on another future show, of course. Aliens
More
are
than
huge.
meets the eye.
I guess we should start with a somber moment before we get into robots.
Well, we should. Earlier today, or maybe it was last night, I'm not quite sure at this point.
Depending on what type of...
Depending on what time zone you were in, there was a terrorist attack on Brussels, and our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected. There, actually, someone that we know personally. She actually has a family that is in Brussels, and I know her father's been frantically been trying to get a hold of friends and family there to make sure that everyone is okay.
Our city actually has many schools that are over there as well, so definitely on everybody's mind. We're glad that the ones from here are okay, and unfortunately that's not the case for everybody.
So you know what I mean. Sit back, relax. We go off and we dedicate the show to Brussels, and we just are here to go off and try to educate you in the most ridiculous way fashionable.
Talking about robots isn't ridiculous. Especially when I did share with you a story this today, recently, very recently. Winnipeg, Manitoba is actually going to have 15 animatronic dinosaur robots in the zoo. Starting in late May, running until September. I think that's pretty cool, and it definitely kicks it off to a great, show for us at least.
You know what? I mean, if nothing else, it will hopefully, bring some tourists here to Winnipeg, just as long as they don't get swallowed by any of our potholes.
I don't know what's more scary, the potholes or the animatronic dinosaurs.
Potholes are going to win that argument every day of the week.
Unfortunately, yes. So, we're not going to get into detail on every movie because,
personally, I don't even know why we even bother doing the list and stuff. I mean, we could just talk about robots.
We could, but, you can't talk about robots without giving you, insight and, facts of exactly movies that have really greatly been shaped by a robot in the movie.
Well, you consider this. I mean, I was doing a little bit of my own research, and you can go back to the late 1980s or 1880s.
Yeah.
Just about the first time that robots were mentioned in books and stuff. And we could talk about in books we could talk about television and stuff. And I mean, and some of the things we're probably going to end up talking about is been kind of crossovers from television to movies and so on and so forth.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the original actually was back in 1896, and honestly, I've had the joy of actually reading and watching some of these things today while I was bored at work, and I shake my head, but I laugh at the same time.
It kind of amazes me because L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz, he was actually one of the first people to actually have robots in his books. And of course, I'm talking about TikTok, who actually was even the central figure, so to speak, in one of Baum's later volumes from the Oz series, which I won't call myself a complete Ozian, but I mean I am, I love the Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely, and it's another movie that has a robotic man, per se.
TikTok and Tin Woodsman, kind of would fit into that as well. I suppose
he's a very unique robot. He started off as a man, and then due to injuries inflicted upon himself because of his axe, he became a robot.
He became a robot. Yeah, but I mean, it seems to kind of progress from there. There's been short films. TikTok again was one of the first to actually be mentioned in it. But then
Godzilla was very famous having robots.
Megazilla,
and also Megalon.
Megalon, yeah, can't forget Megalon.
Growing up with these things, you were really, you get used to the whole idea of robots walking among us. There's one I really don't have to mention, but I'm going to mention anyways, and that's Doctor Who.
There wasn't one. There was actually two races of aliens that were there. You have the Cylons, not the Cylons. Cylons were from Battlestar Galactica. I'm sorry, Whovians. I bow my head in shame. But
you have the Daleks.
We have the Daleks, and then someone shoot me.
The Cybermen.
Cybermen. Thank you. So I mean, they're there, and of course, you can't talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation without mentioning Data, who appeared throughout all the 10 seasons of that show, as well as the 4 movies that came afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. Star Trek is a big thing on on robots and whatnot. I personally, I haven't watched a lot of Star Trek for obvious reasons. I can't get into it.
Star Trek: The Next Generation was a big thing for me. It came along in that time in my life when I was really starting to get into the science fiction world. And, I was, about the time I was like, I just really started to get interested in Star Wars. So Star Trek: The Next Generation came along, and so Data was one of my favorite characters from that show. I always kind of liked the childlike innocence of the character.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to agree with me.
I have to agree because I don't know fully on, Star Trek. It is not my thing. I do appreciate people who are fans of it because it does. As someone who loves Star Wars the way I do, it does take a lot of, effort and energy to follow a series or movies the way that Star Wars and Star Trek fans do. And as much as I don't like Star Trek, I gotta give the fans a lot of credit for sticking with it, through the ups and downs and continuous sagas.
Absolutely. It's just the amazing things that, Star Trek, in one way or another, has went off and has changed a lot of the way the society is. It's amazing kind of the ideas that Gene Roddenberry came up with. Kind of led to, we see things like their little tricorders, hey, they kind of resemble our cell phones now, don't they? So there's some things that you think, hey, these guys might have been watching Star Trek when they came up with their ideas for them.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. There's a lot of other ones. Flash Gordon from 1936.
Oh, Flash Gordon, man. Another one that really impacted George Lucas. Years later.
They had mechanized robotic guards, which actually some people claim weren't robots. Some people claim they were robots. We'll just, for the sake of our show, claim they are robots.
Robots, cyborgs, it doesn't really matter. They're pretty much one and the same.
Yeah. Another one that was created actually at the same time as Flash Gordon and created to compete with Flash Gordon was the Undersea Kingdom, also in 1936. They had trash can-like robot soldiers with ray guns, which are very oddly familiar to the Daleks. Trash can-like creatures are pretty much if you go back to every single robot movie, almost every single one of them are described as such.
All you have to do is look at the astromech droids from the Star Wars series, and they all look like either vacuum cleaners or garbage cans. So,
another very famous one, of course, is Astro Boy.
Astro Boy. I mean, going into just cartoons, period.
Yeah.
I mean, not just Astro Boy, but I mean, we could talk about Transformers. We could talk about GoBots. Around the same, both in the 1980s. So, I mean, robots have been big. I mean, there was a cartoon, I can't even remember, back in the 1990s or early 2000s called, I think, like Z-Man and, the Droids or something. Robots, they've become a huge part. I mean, you look at it, this is a list of movies going back, like, almost 100 years.
1936.
1936. Well, and Metropolis was in 1927. And you and I, before we came on the air, we actually were talking about a couple of movies that came out even before that, which featured robots.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few even before Metropolis, which is, there are some that have come out that were not so great.
This is true.
1964 was a classic case of that. It was Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, or also known as Santa Claus Defeats the Aliens. It was a very low-budget, infamous movie that was actually voted as one of the worst films ever made, which is kind of sad.
Which sounds about right. I mean, there tends not to be a lot of middle ground when you talk about science fiction. It's either really good or it sucks really badly.
Yeah, and people who are fans of robots are, very fickle fans, of course. It's got to be done right, or, fans won't watch it. Terminator, the first couple were really good.
God, that was just... let's just stop and let's talk about Terminator for a couple of minutes, okay? This was a movie, the Terminator was based off a nightmare that James Cameron had. And then the guy who he got to come in and to do, the robotics for that movie, it's just phenomenal. That movie went off and, along with movies like Star Wars, they really went off and changed the way, films were made.
Oh, I completely agree. The graphics, the amount of effort that went into every scene for the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course. Back when he was, a decent human being.
He wasn't the Governor.
It was a phenomenal movie. I will agree. As of lately, it's not a big, on top of my my bucket list to watch.
But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think either of us have seen the last Star... What were we talking about?
Last Terminator. Wow.
I'm sorry. I didn't sleep last night. Yeah, the last Terminator movie. Neither of us watched it. It was like, what, Genesis or something?
Yeah, something
like
that.
Which is too bad because Matt Smith, who I believe played the 11th Doctor, was featured in that movie. So it's kind of too bad that we'll probably never actually get to see more of him because he went off and plays... a crucial character in the whole Terminator universe.
Yes. We're going to talk about another movie, 1956, which is, before I say the name, I'm going to explain what the movie is. To those people who are a huge robot fan or even sci-fi fan, they're going to know the movie we're talking about.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
It was MGM's lavish and colorful sci-fi film featuring the very first celebrity robot, Robbie the Robot.
Robbie the Robot. It's interesting because Leslie Nielsen, back when was in that movie as well before he went off and turned to comedy. And Robbie, though, is such an iconic character. He's appeared in, not just, both television and movies. There was going over a couple things. He was on the Monkees. He was on Columbo. He was in Gremlins.
Yeah, and of course, we are talking about Forbidden Planet.
The Forbidden Planet.
This is actually a film that has inspired